The restaurant was packed with the kind of people who measured worth by the shine of their watches and the weight of their words. Laughter filled the air as waiters rushed between tables, but at one corner near the window sat a woman quietly watching. The crowd, her grey hair tied neatly, her hands resting over her purse, her eyes soft but distant. She was the mother of Adrian Knight, the billionaire. Everyone whispered about. Adrian sat across from her in an expensive suit, his phone in his hand, his attention everywhere but her. He tried to talk, but she just smiled gently, nodding though she couldn't hear a word. He said Adrian's mother was deaf, and while he had learned the basics of sign language as a child, years of business and distraction had built walls between them, walls made of success and silence. A waitress approached with a kind smile. Her name tag read Lena, her eyes warm. She set down 2 glasses of water, then paused, noticing the mother signing slowly, trying to get her son's attention. Adrian didn't notice, too busy reading messages. Lena hesitated, then quietly signed to the older woman. "Would you like me to bring the menu in print or show you the daily specials?" The woman's eyes lit up in surprise, her hands moving. "Fast with joy you sign?" she asked in graceful gestures. Lena smiled back, signing smoothly. "My younger brother is deaf. I learned when I was little." Adrian looked up, finally confused. "What's happening?" His mother laughed silently, then pointed at Lena, her hands moving. "She speaks my language better than you do." The table went still. Adrian blinked, unsure what to say. Lena stepped back, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, sir, I didn't mean to interrupt." He shook his head, speechless, watching as his mother's face glowed with a happiness he hadn't seen in years. She kept signing to Lena, her eyes sparkling with emotion, every gesture filled with warmth and laughter, and Lena replied with care and fluency, as if they'd known each other forever. For the first time in a long time, Adrian saw his mother truly alive. Adrian sat frozen as his mother laughed without sound, her shoulders shaking, her eyes bright with a kind of happiness he hadn't seen since his father died. He had spent years buying her everything, hoping gifts could fill the silence between them. But all it took was one shy waitress who spoke with her hands, not her voice. Lena stood there, modest and unsure, as his mother kept signing faster than his eyes could follow. He caught fragments of it. "She's kind. She listens. She remembers how to speak to me." He swallowed hard, guilt tightening his chest. He leaned closer to his mother, trying to read her signs again, but she just smiled and reached across the table, touching his hand gently before signing slowly. "You forget sometimes I still need words." Adrian looked at Lena, then at his mother, his voice soft. Would you teach me again?" She smiled as tears gathered in her eyes, nodding eagerly, her hands moving. "Yes, if you promise to listen this time." When the meal ended, Adrian stood by the table watching Lena thank his mother in sign. She was about to leave when he called after her. "Wait, please." She turned, startled. "I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable." "Earlier," he said, "my mother hasn't smiled like that in years. I don't know how to thank you." She shook her head. "You don't have to thank me, sir. I just spoke to her the way she deserved." He smiled faintly. "And that's something I forgot how to." Till the next morning, his assistant entered his office, confused. "Sir, there's a request here. You want a part-time employee transferred to your private staff." He nodded. "Yes, her name is Lena. She'll be my mother's companion. I want her paid double." The standard rate. His assistant hesitated. "But sir, she's a waitress." He smiled. Not anymore. When Lena found out, she refused at first, saying she wasn't qualified, but Adrian's mother insisted. She accepted, eventually spending her days reading to the older woman, taking her on walks, teaching her to sign poems and songs. Sometimes Adrian would join them, sitting quietly, watching his mother's face light up again, the soundless laughter filling rooms that had forgotten warmth. One evening, as the sun set over the garden, Lena and his mother signed a short verse together, hands moving like music. Adrian watched his mother look up at him and sign. "She gave me my words back. Now you give her yours." He turned to Lena, his throat tight, and signed slowly, though clumsily. "Thank you for speaking when I forgot how." She smiled, her eyes glistening. "You didn't forget, you just stopped listening." That night, for the first time in years, Adrian didn't work late. Instead, he sat with his mother, and the girl who reminded him that love doesn't always need a voice. Sometimes it just needs understanding. Weeks passed. and the mansion that once felt like a museum slowly began to sound alive again, not with noise but with movement, with laughter. That didn't need sound and warmth, that didn't need words every morning. Adrian found his mother and Lena in the garden, their hands moving like art, their faces glowing with joy. Sometimes he'd join them, his signs still clumsy, but improving. His mother always laughed silently and corrected him with a gentle pat on the hand, while Lena smiled encouragingly. "You're getting better, sir." He would grin. "Not fast enough." She would shake her head softly. Patience is part of the language too. Afternoon, Adrian returned early from a business trip and found them sitting at the piano. His mother's fingers pressing the keys softly, not to hear but to feel the vibration. Lena sat beside her, humming along, so she could see the rhythm on her lips. Adrian stood quietly at the door, something in his chest shifting, a reminder that love could exist in silence. He walked in and signed awkwardly. "What song is this?" His mother looked up and signed with a smile. "The one I used to play for you, when you were little." Later that evening, as they had tea in the garden, Adrian turned to Lena. "You know, when I first met you, I thought my mother needed someone to help her now. I realized she already had help. What I needed was someone to teach me how to be her son again." Lena smiled gently. "You just forgot that silence is not emptiness, it's listening in another way." He nodded quietly. "You made me see that." A few days later, at a charity event honoring programs for the deaf community, Adrian walked. On stage with his mother at his side instead of a speech, he began signing slowly, every word imperfect but sincere. "Tonight, I learned that success means nothing if you can't speak to the people who matter most, and sometimes the greatest voices are the ones you can't hear." The audience rose in applause, some wiping tears, while his mother clapped silently, smiling through shining eyes in the crowd. Lena stood near the back, her hands clasped her face, glowing with pride. After the event, he found her by the hallway and said, "Thank you for giving me back my mother." She smiled softly. "No, sir, you gave her back your heart." As they stood under the soft light of the chandeliers, his mother approached, placing one hand on each of theirs, and signed, "Simply together you both taught me to hear again." Adrian looked at Lena and signed slowly, "Maybe we all learned the same thing." She smiled, her hands answering, "Maybe love was always meant to be silent."